Say when. All righty. Welcome everyone to the Seattle-King County Continuum of Care Board's regular monthly meeting. I want to welcome everyone in, and I'd like to start off as usual with land acknowledgement. Dorsal.
Thank you. I would just like to take this opportunity and invite everyone to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. Since some of us are virtual, I encourage you to look into whose lands you may be on while meeting with us today here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex, will you give us a roll call?
If you could just say if you're present, and I'll call your name. Patricia Barnes Sam.
Present.
Tamara Bauman.
Here.
Kenyatta Carol Lemon. These Castro.
Here.
Zaga Floyd.
Here.
Marvin Futrell.
Here.
Antoinette Lambert. Dorsal Planets.
Here.
Ruby Romero.
Here.
I just can't.
Martha Sasrosi.
Present.
Christina Sawicki. Sherry Tillman. Helena White. Okay, so we have 8 members present. We do have 4.
Why, thank you. As I was reviewing the agenda, I wanted to ask Kelsey, where we wanted to introduce a vote for NOFA funding and applying for it. Can we do that under your updates?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay. And vote. All righty. So next is reviewing the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Get a motion to accept.
I moved to, yeah, whatever.
Okay.
I second it.
All righty. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I have a
Aye.
edit to propose. Or just-
I'm
Sorry.
so-
Marvin, can we have discussion? There were just a couple, I think, small
Right, yeah.
adjustments.
So, yes, let's, so it's been moved in second. Let's do discussion now. Are there any changes? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, I'll just jump in, just a couple small things I was wanting to capture. And so on page 3 of the packet, just noting in the second bullet point, yeah, that it's VAWA, VAWA, for the emergency transfers.
Okay.
I don't know how many bullet points down this is, but there may be up to 3 to 4 current awards that may undergo reallocation due to a voluntary. It just looked like that got cut off, and I'm not sure what the right term is, but we had like voluntary return of funds.
Reallocation.
Thank you. And then,
Reallocation.
oh, last one, super small, but just local application rating and ranking tool, just says ranking. I think we all know what it's meant to say, but while we're making a couple edits, just a small change.
So what, okay, local application rating and ranking tool is being developed by the System Performance Committee this year. What should it say?
Ranking.
Ranking. Oh, ranking. Okay. Are there any other? Okay, not hearing anything. All in favor to accept the minutes?
Excuse
say
me, I'm sorry. I did have a question real quick,
Go ahead.
and it's on the page number 2. Would like clarification. It says vote on new COC chair, co-chair. Under, there was some discussion, and it said under the 5th bullet, it said the group nominated to hold 11 an annual additional vote for the second co-chair position, since the initial chairs were not voted in once the COC board happened. And I just want to follow up on that. You weren't present at that meeting, Marvin, and neither was Eli, to my understanding. And there was some discussion, so I needed the clarification. I know we voted in Jaja, but
Yes.
I'm still trying to clear, will that be on today's agenda? And where do
No.
we stand there?
Okay, so it's not on today's agenda, and at the next convening for the Continuum of Care allows for leadership, for a leadership vote for confirmation. It should be known that my seat, I will be, by the time of the convening, 6 months longer in the seat than what was planned. So we'll either change it, or there will be a vote if folks want me to stay on it. So, and we have an opportunity to do that at the convening, or we can call a special meeting if it's needed beforehand to do leadership, if we need a change in leadership. Did that answer your question?
Clarify more. Thank you.
You're
Just
welcome.
wanted to make sure that everyone was present, and since your name came up, that we're all on the same page and the communication is clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all righty. So are there any other questions or corrections for the minutes? All righty, let's take a vote, and why don't we do it by roll call? So, yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to say if you approve of time. Trisha Barnes, Sam,
I didn't hear anything.
sorry. Do you approve these notes?
These minutes,
These minutes?
Yes,
Thank you. Tamara Bauman?
I approve.
Brianna Fairwoman? Please, Casper.
Yeah, I did not get the chance to thoroughly look over them. In terms of like the co-chair vote, like did we come to a conclusion with that, or are we just like starting from scratch at our next vote?
well, you'll have to, do we have time? The quick answer to that one is you do have to vote on one of your co-chairs at our next opportunity to do so, which is hopefully be at the COC convening, so that the Continuum of Care is part of the ratification process of the board's leadership.
Okay,
So-
so right now you are the co-chair and no changes have been made and the vote has not resulted. Okay, cool. I approve. Thanks.
Wood,
Yes.
Marvin,
Sure.
Antoinette Lambert. Orson Lance,
Approve.
Ruby Romero,
Approve.
Martha Saceros. Oh, they're not here. Okay,
Approve.
Martha's here.
Martha's here.
Martha's here. She-
Okay, and then everyone else is not present. Thank you. Go ahead.
Alrighty. That takes us to public comment. As I'm
You didn't ask.
unsure
for
what
my vote.
Galena has joined us.
I vote yes.
Thank you. Okay. Alrighty. For those who, I was not here at the last regular meeting, I'd like to take this opportunity to open up public comment. As has been the history with our board, public comment is open for the entirety of our meeting. We dedicate 10 minutes for folks who have joined us, but if others wish to apply comment during the meeting, please let us know in chat. We have someone monitoring and we will give you an opportunity to speak to our topics. So with that, public comment is open, and do we have anybody in the gallery or queue?
No one at this time, it looks like. If anyone does, please either raise your hand or put a comment in and we will monitor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item on our agenda, as we move forward, would be for us to affirm the KCRHA as the HMIS lead. This piece of business is a carryover. We gave general consent, but didn't realize we needed to vote on it. So KCRHA has been acting as our HMIS lead now for 2 years. And I would like to put it on the floor for a vote. If is there any discussion around it? Any need for clarification of what that means?
I second the motion.
I'm sorry, let's
All righty.
All right.
This roll call.
I do want to note quickly that we do have a hand raised in the gallery for Taj Wallace. Would you like to take that before proceeding?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Patricia has her hand.
Taj, you are unmuted.
Yes. The vote I would like clarification on what we're voting on, please.
Sure. Does anyone want to give the technical version or my version? Which will probably be less technical. We provide oversight for the county's HMI, Homeless Management Information System. Our collaborative lead agency usually monitors the internal workings and the day-to-day workings of that. We as the Continuum of Care Board acknowledge that this is where that lies, and that all of the protections and information are in place, and that the work is done. It is a crucial piece to federal funding, and it helps to have everything up to date when we're going through this application process. Did I answer your question, Taj? Oh, that was Patricia?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ms. Beck. Did I answer your question?
Pretty close. And can you just state and what are we voting on so that I can make a decision, please?
We're affirming that the KCRHA is as the HMIS lead is the lead on the HMIS work. And they, yes.
I was gonna clarify a little bit what the HMIS lead means, if that's okay.
Sure.
Basically, that just means that they're the collaborative applicant too, as well for the funding that has to do, like for the HUD funding. So the HMIS lead is just the one that kind of handles all the information and data that goes into HUD in one collaborative application on behalf of all the programs underneath them. As far as my understanding is.
Thank you, Ruby.
And so just for transparency on my end, I would like it to be noted that, yes, I am new to the board and I'm being asked to vote. In order for me to vote equitably, I would kind of need some background, or else I just feel like I'm saying yes or no to something. So that's why I'm asking for clarification on this. And I know there's things that, you know, a lot of you have been on the board and working in the past, but for me, it's new. And I just don't want to feel like I'm just saying yes, and I don't have a clear understanding of what I'm even voting for. That's where I stand right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Camera?
Yes. Oh, yes, I do approve.
Sorry, we saw her from Taj.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dorsal. Taj? We did this once. Taj, you're unmuted.
Be an accidental hand. I can message her and double check.
Okay.
Let's move forward
Yep.
and,
And if Taj
yeah.
shows up, we'll take the comment.
So we're going to affirm the KTRHA as HMIS leader. Kenyana Carol Hillman. Lise Castro.
Yeah.
Thank you. John Lloyd.
Yes.
Marvin.
Yes.
Lamb is not here. Dorsal Plants.
I'd like to abstain.
Ruby Romero.
I approve.
Martha Sassarosi.
Approve.
Galena White.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. That passes, I believe.
Did you get my vote? I didn't hear my name called.
Yes, Patricia, you abstained, right?
No, I didn't. I just asked for clarification, but I never,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
no, I'm going to say yes. I just asked for clarification first. I didn't abstain.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
Okay.
Good
Could
stuff. Yes. Taj?
No, it's
Peggy?
okay. I wanted to add some more detail, but
You may.
Maybe your clarification will help Patricia and I and others. Well, I kind of know, but yeah, and others.
well, I just would like it in the minutes that that this, just to clarify Marvin's point, saying that it was not voted upon. It was voted upon in March of 2022. But there was not when the System Performance Committee is working through an HMIS governance matrix best practice, which is recommended but not required by HUD. When we're going through the matrix, making sure we have all of the pieces that are recommended by HUD as far as HMIS governance goes. We were looking for the document that verifies that we were the HMIS lead that was voted on in March of 2022, and that document was missing. So we're doing the revote at this point. So I just wanted that in the minutes in case we do get this gets pulled up for any kind of reasoning that there was a vote and it was not documented. So we are revoting to reestablish that to make sure that we are in full compliance as far as the governance goes. And we probably don't have time at this meeting, but with you all being new advisory committee members, if you would like, we can definitely do a little bit longer presentation of what the HMIS governance looks like and what the charter is. So I'd be happy to come back to explain in more detail.
I got that in the minutes. Thank you, Janelle. I'm sure that we would love that in one of our next meetings.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You. All righty. Moving right along, the next update that we have, next piece on the agenda is coordinated entry update. I believe Alex is going to give us an update. Do I have that right, Kelsey? Alex? Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Alex.
Hey,
Hello.
Alex.
How are y'all?
Good.
Good.
Great.
I'll state for the record, my name is Alex Ibrahimi. My pronouns are he and him. I'm the System Performance Manager at the RHA. And I am going to attempt to share some slides, so please bear with me. Okay, can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I wasn't easily able to see y'all and talk simultaneously. Does that go full screen for y'all?
Yes.
I think so. Great. Okay. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate the verbal feedback. So I'm just going to run through some of the fundamentals of coordinated entry. This is going to be familiar territory for most of you, but to the earlier conversation, wanting to orient some of the new colleagues that are on the committee to some of the fundamentals about coordinated entry. So just want to talk about essentially what coordinated entry is. It's in a sentence, it's the system designed to connect people experiencing homelessness to housing that's funded specifically for that purpose. Eligibility for coordinated entry as it stands are people that are qualified under different categories as defined by HUD. Folks that are staying in a shelter, folks that are sleeping in a place not for human habitation, that can be outside, in a tent, in a vehicle. It can also be a place that's being squatted that doesn't have any utilities currently hooked up. Survivors fleeing or attempting to flee intimate partner violence or domestic violence or human trafficking or commercial sexual exploitation. And then also as it relates to young people ages 18 to 24, those young people who are at imminent risk of losing their housing in 14 days. The governing and oversight and implementation of coordinated entry is outlined on this slide deck. From left to right, we have the continuum of care lead, which is the RHA, and we also have the system performance team, which is the team that I help to support, that operationalizes coordinated entry, and then community impact team. Janelle is a prominent member of that team who evaluates the performance of coordinated entry, and current governance is provided by this group, the COC board. The team currently comprises my colleague Olivia Heidos as the coordinator, 4 specialists that are part of the team: Karina Jordan Hernandez, who manages veterans, True Blood, and American Indian Alaska Native, Nicole Filmon-Mastrata, who helps to support the young adult space, Surya Aguilar, who helps to support the family right of way and the Partnership for Zero Labor, and our newest member, Tom Regan, who currently supports the single adult labor. We are going to go over briefly some of the key components of coordinated entry as defined by HUD, and one extra that we recognize locally. First is access. We currently have what's described as a no wrong door model that relies on 5 regional access points scattered throughout the county that are identified points of entry where someone would connect directly with a provider to be able to connect with coordinated entry and also have a conversation related to diversion. There's also some outreach that are provided at some of those locations as well. In addition to that, we have partnered with the community of providers that are serving folks experiencing homelessness to make sure that people that they're serving currently are able to access coordinated entry directly without having to go to a regional access point. The assessment component of coordinated entry is limited to a coordinated entry enrollment that is the bare minimum as required by HUD data standards. So we have an enrollment through coordinated entry that focuses in on homeless history, disability status, income, and non-cash benefits. Additionally, our housing triage tool has been streamlined to be 2 questions. The first one being what type of household what type of household is being discussed. So are they an individual or their family? And then is there pregnancy in the household? The third thing is related to the referral process, and we have developed a nomination protocol for folks that is now on a 24-hour cycle for the most prominent bodies of work that we hope to support. So for the Partnership for Zero work, for the single adult work, for the family work, for the young adult work, there are 24-hour cycles where nominations are available and units are sent out daily to our partners in the community. And we also have what we refer to currently as a case conferencing 30 minutes that is optional for people to attend. In fact, it's closer to drop-in hour, drop-in half hour, and question and answer. And we have intention to rebrand that to be more accurate on the label. The other bodies of work that the team helps us support are the American Indian Alaska Native Case Conferencing, which happens bi-weekly. That group is currently focused in on resources that are specifically funded to support that community. Those vary, and we're really in debt to the Native American provider community to stand that up. I think that there was some scattering that happened as a result of the pandemic initially, and we're working to be able to reinvigorate that space, which I think those of you that have been in this space before, heard me talk about this, have heard me say previously. The other pieces are mobility transfers. The coordinated entry team is responsible for making sure that people that have been housed in the housing that supports folks formerly homeless, they don't exit into homelessness again. And that's a significant body of work. We have a number of criteria where folks can be eligible for that process. Most notable and most frequent are imminent safety risk, and that can take a variety of different circumstances, but often impacts survivors specifically. The other piece is True Blood case conferencing, which is really ad hoc as needed. That funding stream comes from the state via partners at the county, and is focused on folks that are high utilizers of the criminal legal system and also have high behavioral health needs. And then last, but certainly not least, the veteran space, the veteran case conferencing and the veteran operation leadership team, which is a group of partners that are involved in ending veteran homelessness in our community. Referrals through coordinated entry require 3 fundamental components to lead to housing, excuse me. First one being household eligibility. Second one are preferences and choice. And then the third one is service match. Service match essentially means that we're being good stewards of the resources, that we're appropriately placing folks into housing that meet their needs, that do not exceed their needs, and that we are honoring people's ability to be independent. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about the systematic changes to coordinated entry and those improvements. Currently, we're working on two portions of the work. The first one being the access to coordinated entry referrals to housing, and the second one being is the success of coordinated entry housing referrals themselves. As many of you are familiar, the coordinated entry system was integral in the emergency housing voucher work that initiated in late 21 through 22 in partnership with the local public housing agencies. We, among other paths, developed something that was referred to as reverse matching, meaning that if you're a provider serving people experiencing homelessness, you have built relationships with them, you have familiarized yourselves with their needs, and you are able to pass them into, at that time, emergency housing vouchers that were available for a limited time, and you were also committing to support the navigation component. And that last piece I'm going to emphasize again. Because navigation is something that's critical for success in housing placement, but it's often overlooked, and it doesn't happen. The activity of housing folks is not simply an email, nor is it a database entry. It requires folks to be there to support folks in real life and in different places, and that's the activity we're referring to as navigation. The previous process through coordinated entry can be described in essence as a small subset of folks experiencing homelessness had access to housing resources. That small subset was referred to as the priority pool. And one of the most visible and frequently identified points of friction in the previous design of coordinated entry was that there were a number of folks, the majority by large amounts, that didn't have access into that housing resource. So it caused a number of behaviors that were not, I think, healthy from a system perspective, were not healthy for the providers delivering the services, and certainly were not person-centered for the people that we are serving, essentially. So what we've done is to learn from the process with emergency housing vouchers, where we're working with providers that have built rapport and have built relationships with people experiencing homelessness. And we've allowed them to be able to nominate to the housing resources that are available. And that's that 24-hour cadence that I described earlier related to single adults, families, and young adults. So we send out resources to a community of providers that's very large. Those providers have a window of opportunity to nominate the folks that they're serving to housing resources. We have an optional drop-in session daily for folks to be able to ask any questions. We provide them a list of the inventory details if they want to do the research on their own. And we've essentially transitioned to this process over 2 months that took place, as outlined in the slide, from April 17th to May 26th of this year. In addition, this aligned us with a directive from HUD related to the cessation of external fills, which were essentially a circumvision of coordinated entry. So we have closed external fills, and we have learned from that design and from that success of some of the external fill processes, integrating that into coordinated entry, making it universally available for providers that are serving people experiencing homelessness, regardless of their size or their place in our community. And we have provided a consistent process for those nominations. And what we've seen anecdotally is a tick in the velocity for matching people to housing that exceeds the previous process through coordinated entry. One other component related to this work is we're seeing, I think, something that is well known to folks that have done this work in the past, is chronic homelessness as defined by HUD, required to a good number of resources, is complicated, and it takes a bit of experience with documenting it to be able to do it successfully, consistently. And there's an opportunity to provide technical assistance to our colleagues in different organizations around how to do chronic homelessness documentation. Additionally, and I cannot overemphasize this given the forum, particularly for single adults, most acute for that community, but broadly, we have resources that are defined for folks that need light touches, short duration of services, short depth of resources like diversion, and to a greater extent, rapid rehousing. We have permanent supportive housing on the other end of the spectrum that is very robust and permanent, as the name implies. But what we lack, and I think the emergency housing vouchers filled it temporarily, is resources that have a durable subsidy for people experiencing homelessness, but do not have a long portion of support, case management or otherwise, for those folks. Oftentimes people just need some help getting stabilized and a durable subsidy to be able to afford the rent, and they are able to manage everything else independently. And if they need something, they can come back and get some support. But truly what we've observed is there's a lack of those types of resources in our community, and that has caused friction with matching to resources as folks looking for permanent subsidy gravitate to permanent supportive housing in absence of other resources that make more sense given their level of need. The other piece, which is aligned with all this, is the inconsistent understanding of the portfolio of resources in our community. We are endeavoring on developing a battery of trainings for our colleagues at different organizations to familiarize themselves initially with the project types existing through HUD. And then in the context of our community within those project types, there's nuance and difference in those project types. We want to be able to educate folks on the differences, so that way they're more confident when they make nominations to resources. Again, as I described, support on chronic homelessness documentation, and then internal to the system performance team, the team that manages coordinated entry that I'm fortunate enough to support currently, we want to be able to capture qualitative data when it comes to unsuccessful referrals. Quantitative data capture is longstanding and robust. Qualitative data is something that we want to focus in on as well. And this really pertains to when we send referrals that do not lead to successful housing placement. There are occasions where we hear different narratives from both the potential housing provider and the household or the navigator, the case manager, whomever supporting that household as to the events that cause the unsuccessful referral. So we want to basically identify these sticking points, being able to work to reduce them, because ultimately we need to move past just the concept that referrals are the measure of success for coordinated entry, when housing placements are the measure of success, in my opinion. And the other piece is, again, with the education, is having monthly orientation sessions for people to join, to get familiar with coordinated entry and the process for nominating folks that they're supporting. The other pieces that are just larger administrative tasks are mobility request, homelessness waiver updates. I know that there's some members of your committee that are familiar with that. We want to be able to operationalize the important work related to mobility transfers, so that way people don't exit into homelessness. And that requires a refresh on the mobility request homelessness waiver. We're currently working with HUD technical assistance on that point. The other piece is future prioritization. For everyone's awareness, COVID prioritization was something we developed and implemented in October 2020 that used administrative data from a few different databases to be able to prioritize people to housing and develop that priority pool. We are no longer under the COVID declaration, and we are no longer able to access that data. We're exploring new opportunities to be able to design processes that retain the equity developments and the equity progress that we made on COVID prioritization using data that we have access to. In the interim, when we're managing the nomination process, we're looking primarily on length of time of current housing episode, secondarily on survivors, prioritizing survivors, and tertiary and less frequently folks that are unsheltered. So that's where we're at currently, and we hope to be able to have more updates for you all in the coming months. We also have, and I will drop the link in the chat after I'm done with the presentation, we also have a session coming up, a town hall September 15th from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. We have a Smart Sheets form. I'll drop a link for folks to be able to come join a conversation related to their input on prioritization. The other stuff, and this is relevant for emergency housing vouchers, but relevant always, is a deeper and more frequent partnerships with the public housing agencies to be able to streamline the process of matching to project-based housing resources that run through the continuum, permanent supportive housing being most notable. The other piece is working towards developing a sustainable trauma-informed process for managing multiple referrals to a single resource. This is something that, if done well, should be able to reduce the duration that resources stay open, and that's the other half of our work. We want to be able to streamline process from the person's perspective experiencing homelessness, and we also want to reduce the duration that resources stay open for obvious reasons, and that's something that we're exploring initially with one provider in the community. The other piece is, as we think about re-procurement, thinking about the access points and the front doors to coordinated entry from a person-centered design framework. That's something that we're working on presently. And then as we move forward into the 2024 year, exploring what would need to happen in order to be able to institute shelter placements initially for the UCT, for the Unified Care Team, to be able to manage those shelter placements. So I'll drop the link in the chat, and there is the end slide that has a QR code if you're interested in learning more about the regional homes authority. Awesome.
Thank you, Alec. Are there questions? I think there's one in the chat. There's a few in the chat.
Okay, I will try and make my way to the chat. Please give me a minute.
The first question,
There you go. That's
the first question from the Q&A, the CE eligibility. What about those staying at motels being paid by service providers? And they gave an answer. If someone is staying in a motel that is paid for by a service provider, that is considered literally homeless. Is that right?
Mhm. That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so they're still homeless even though, okay, that's good to know. The next question, so folks are told to call CCS after assessment and someone will reach out to them. When calling CCS, folks are directed to voicemail to leave messages and not receiving call backs. Why is this happening?
I'm happy to help answer that question as I've got some context around that. So CCS is one of our regional access point providers, our RAP providers. And last year, one of the program specialists on my team, Che Vasquez Colon, did some outreach with all of our RAP providers to look at kind of the volume of calls that centers were getting, because that was some feedback we were hearing from folks accessing RAPs. And some of the context that we received, particularly from CCS and their main RAP that's in the Seattle area, is that they receive on a monthly basis around anywhere between 500 and 800 calls a month. A lot of folks are then they're diverted to the voicemail because they don't have enough staff to answer every single phone call. Most RAPs have like 3 or 4 case managers. So this is something that they've been experiencing, is just staffing challenges and the ability to return all of those phone calls. They do screen every single phone call, and they return the ones that they know they can respond to. So they try and triage those phone calls. It is not a perfect system, and we have been working with RAPs to kind of look at what resources they may need, what supports they may need. And this is going to be an ongoing effort over the next while, because we don't just magically have more funding to be giving to RAPs to better resource them. So that's been one of the pieces that we know is going on, that they're experiencing, is just a huge volume of calls and just not enough humans and hours in the day to respond to every single call.
Thank you. Up next is Ruby.
Yeah, hi. I just want to piggyback off of Patricia's question there a little bit, and just wanted to reiterate the fact that reducing hours that they receive calls or return calls is not reducing the inflow into the homeless system. And so that creates an even larger bottleneck and an even larger problem when people are waiting for calls back that they never get, waiting for days like on end, trying to see if they're going to get housing when it's already been decided for that, So I just wanted to reiterate that frustration there.
Thank you, Ruby. Dorsal, I think you were next.
I did. I have a compliment and a question. The compliment, I do want to compliment Alex and the team's focus on adding the qualitative with the quantitative. I always felt as a service provider that my version of the story was always taken with a little bit higher value, which was not always justified. The question I have, though, is kind of specific. So you mentioned in one of the slides that mobility transfers for safety take 1 business day. One, I'd like clarification. Are we talking bankers business days, or are we talking human service provider business days? Just Thinking about a survivor Friday at 8 p.m. that's just been abused, are we saying that a mobility transfer for safety has to wait until Monday or Tuesday for that survivor in danger and everyone else in that facility who is now potentially at risk?
Yeah, hi, Dorsal. So one, I'm going to start by giving just like the broader context, as there is a DV system that exists, and there is a pathway to contact folks that require that level of support. And then there are folks that are placed in non-confidential housing resources through the broader through the COC, through the broader coordinated entry system. When there is an imminent safety risk mobility request submitted, we respond within 24 hours, and those are business hours, to use your term. The RHA is not officially open on the weekends. There are also at these programs, because the very nature of a mobility transfer means that a staff member is involved and a staff member is submitting it. So if there is an imminent safety risk of the nature that requires the call to, say, 911 as an example, or a referral to the DV system, we are expecting our colleagues at that organization to be able to facilitate that. This is about the longer term placement into housing, and we are also identifying if someone requires a confidential resource, which can happen, is not the rule, but it certainly does happen. Then they need to connect with the DV system directly for that confidential resource, because confidential resources don't flow through coordinated entry. The other piece is related to the turnaround time. And we talk about a 24-hour response in business hours for those mobility transfers. And more often than not, we are following up with additional questions, because what we're looking for is trying to understand what the challenges are at a high level, what mitigation strategies have been employed, and what the new housing placement, the proposed new housing placement, will do to either mitigate or ideally eliminate. And that varies from situation to situation. Not often are we first receiving a mobility transfer that we do not have to then follow up with the provider on additional questions. So that 24-hour time frame is about the communication back with that provider. But again, to your point, if there's we use the term imminent safety risk, but if there is something that is truly eminent in the definition of that word, then we would expect that other measures are taken, because this is something related to longer term housing placements.
I appreciate that. I just want to put out the statistic for my colleagues who are entering this work. About 54 women in King County call every day for DV shelter, and one of them gets placed. And so there are fewer DV options than shelter options. 60 to 70% of the families in the emergency housing shelters are there because of DV.
Thanks for that, Dorso. And I think you're really elevating a deficit when it comes to this population, this community. And that's, I think, it extends beyond coordinated entry specifically, but certainly it impacts it.
Thank you. Patricia?
Okay, just quickly, thank you, everyone. Can't call out all your names, but I know, thank you for the presentation, Alex, Kelsey for clarifying, and Ruby. And just to add back to my original question, yeah, with the call-in procedure. So I just want to add, yeah, it's been frustrating for me as a case manager and working in the agency, and then also in the community with especially our people of color, Black community, getting them, just the process of when the 211, I think it was under the 211, you call, you get the HMI, you get the number, then they say follow up. So just short story, I even went to the Central area Catholic Community Service, transported early in the morning, took time off to go in and to help advocate. And I watched the system a few times, and the people at the front desk kind of create barriers, because we're just here to, we don't know what to do. And then that makes the client frustrated. I'm trying to explain, and they're saying, well, you can come in. It's just, there hasn't been a very good follow up. And I've been working with a couple of individuals for the past over year and still haven't gotten anywhere. I just recently called in myself again twice. And I emailed some folks and waiting for responses. So I'm just glad that you're bringing the presentation up, but what can we do? How can we help? Because again, you have the population out there and we're working to try, they're being harassed by the police, getting trespassed, going to jail. And then that's just overwhelming. And I may get calls. I'm saying, I'm working on my 7.5 hours, but then I'm a community advocate for my community, like my faith-based community and families that are experiencing homelessness. And so I'm not getting anywhere. Just wondering, thanks for giving me this space to bring that up and what other options are there. Because like I said, I still have 2 and I sent them through the process and I'm getting the calls back saying, guess what? The system isn't working, it's failing. I've tried this and where's the application? They've done what was asked of them. So what's the part of the agency? Once they do that, where do they go now? I'm lost. Thank you.
And I think we recorded most of that because we will follow up and see what we can do. I have up next Ruby and then Sherry.
Thank you so much. Sorry to take up the floor a lot, but this is a very near and dear subject to my heart. So there has to be a data solution out there at this point. You know, there has to be something out there, and I know there is. But what I'm trying to say is, like, all of these issues are so nuanced. You know, we have to have that qualitative, right? That's the one that's first person experience narrative. That's what we really need. That's the data that we need in order to fix all of this problem. But I think that what Patricia's saying is very, very true. I've experienced similar experiences as somebody that has gone through the 211 service, you know, tried to get housing for a domestic violence situation and said the wrong thing and no longer qualified. And the lady on the phone just went, there's nothing I can do because I said I had gone away from where I was at. That's fleeing in my book, but apparently not. So we need better language on that particular thing because it's very, very frustrating to think that you're going to be able to flee. And so you go thinking that you'll access something and you can't access it. And then you're just, you know. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Sherry, then Martha. Sherry?
Can you all hear me?
Yes. We can see.
Thank you. So my thing is Patricia and Ruth, someone to follow up to make sure down this for someone being in control and handling stuff with CEA and as I said even a long time ago, and with with our car center, see families on the list, they're not budging because there's no openings and told them to call, RAP or call 211 and all that, and not getting assistance that they need. And so it's like, so who go to who's going to be accountable to make sure that families are, being through the system a fast enough time. So that.
Barry, for me, you were cutting out a little, but I think I heard the gist of what you were sharing, and I want to remind us all, and this is important, and certainly it's likely in the back of many of our minds, but fundamentally, what we're all dealing with is a significant scarcity when it comes to housing resources for our community members who need those housing resources, and there is importance in innovating and making things more efficient. I have made as much effort as we can as a team to iterate and improve and innovate and streamline. And these points of friction are perennial. They have been part of the challenge related to coordinated entry. And fundamentally, a good portion of them would be reduced significantly or eliminated were there an appropriate ratio of housing resources to the need in our community. And I will labor tirelessly to reduce friction, and I hear the points of friction. And I think some of these are related to how do we want to think about a system as a whole as it relates to someone's experience attempting, specifically attempting to use it. And there's an opportunity ahead of us as a community when we think about that is unprecedented and perhaps will never repeat again in this way. So, I mean, I encourage engagement in that, but I want to bring us back to fundamentally, there's a significant scarcity in housing, and that's driving a good portion of the things that we're discussing today.
Thank you, Alex. Martha, then Sherry.
Yes, thanks so much for that information, Alex. It's helpful as much as even in my role, I touch the coordinated entry system. It's not a daily part of my work. And so really helpful to have the overview. And I think mostly have a reflection to offer, something I'm processing. So I think I see like the pendulum sometimes swings kind of back and forth between approach with prioritization and having a priority pool. Previously in CoPri, we had a very explicit kind of set of criteria we were using to identify a subset of individuals from which nominations were then made. We're now kind of swinging the other way of really so much power lies in the hands of providers to be doing that work of engaging with folks and bringing forward nominations. So my understanding then is that that really puts that much more emphasis on equity of access to those service providers and the earlier entry points to coordinated entry. And so wrapping my head around the changes to how the unit posting and referral and nomination and referral process, how that has changed. And so I'm just wondering, and this is maybe more broadly for KCRHA, on the access piece and maybe the less formal prioritization we have now, because it's really kind of sitting with the providers. Are there policy changes, any like process or structural changes, resource changes to get at kind of that part of the equity consideration and how access to housing is structured in our community now?
Yeah. Hi, Martha. I think so fundamentally, there's always a significant amount of interest in prioritization when it comes to coordinated entry, because it's the thing that kind of like differentiates. It's the thing that parses out. And I hear the like there was a very well-defined small subset of folks, and the amount of friction generated in order to be able to then take these folks that were not necessarily known to the community providers and attempt to path them to housing really created additional challenges for everyone involved, and not the least of which for the housing providers that were expecting to receive referrals to their housing. I do think that the EHB work shows that it can work well, and you're right around being able to so using the energy and the relationships that are built out already in the service provider community, which and until there are self-directed, I'm nominating myself to housing. Until such a design exists, there is a great deal of power on the part of providers, and I think we should just acknowledge that from the jump. And I think that speaks to how do we as a community ensure that every community provider has a base understanding of equity, not the least of which is racial equity, and how that relates to their own labor and how it shows up, how we may inevitably be supporting, through lack of scrutiny, white dominant culture and white supremacy through some of these organizations that have long-standing histories. And I think that's a worthy continuum challenge that should be addressed. As it relates to prioritization, we currently have a process that is not as deep as I would want, and I think what I'm hearing that you would want, and I think what we need to be able to do in the next few weeks, to the point of having a town hall to solicit input, is to work on something that is a short-term solution that we do not backslide on the prioritization progress we've made, particularly on racial equity that COVID prioritization allowed us to do, and that we have a middle longer term strategy for something in the future that takes a little bit longer to develop. So the other piece that I would highlight related to the necessity to connect with a provider is that this goes back to system design, is that we need to have appropriate throughput through all junctures of the process for someone experiencing homelessness. And I don't know, and this again, I can't overemphasize the opportunity we here have as a community to be able to think about what the velocity, the desired velocity, considering the output constraints because of the number of resources, and right sizing the support to be able to as smooth and as quickly process someone through the whole thing. And I bring up that larger picture to talk about the navigation. Navigation perhaps is unfair to call an afterthought, but it certainly isn't a primary thought when it comes to the community. There's a need to be able to support someone explicitly into housing, and that should be at least a part of everyone's job throughout the whole system serving people experiencing homelessness, is how do we get this individual or this family into housing? And when we talk about being able to re-procure some of these things, it needs to be integral in that goal. When we did the EHBs, we entered into MOAs with the organizations, and we're explicit about that responsibility. And I think that's part of the reason why we saw significant success, is because people were very clear about the responsibility is to help this person, help this family get into housing. It isn't simply an activity that happens electronically or verbally. It is an activity that happens on the ground, serving people directly.
Well, thank you, Alex. I'm sorry, I can't.
Ruby says, why can't the individual or household do that? And then if we had equal access to via first person entry.
Yeah,
So
I will say that there are many people that can do that. And there are people in our community that require additional support for various reasons. And we sit at the nexus of multiple systems that were not designed to work together, that are not very clear to access. Look at anything from HUD, our esteemed colleagues in DC. It's a bureaucracy of the largest size, and there are complications there that require someone with the subject matter expertise. It is not, I say this not out of paternalism, but out of care for being able to demystify interlocking systems that were never locked intentionally in the first place and don't function well.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Okay. Last call for questions. Seeing none, I wanted to thank Alex and prep the road for, hopefully we'll be back to see us again here real soon. I wanted to highlight that the information for the town hall, we will get that out to folks. Yes.
September 13th.
Yes. And if folks wanted to participate further with coordinated entry or designs, how would we do that? That would be my question. Where would that work sit? When we first started up, we had a PAC. I think that stands for Policy Act, or I'm not sure. Advisory Committee.
Mm-hmm.
Policy Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
I was never a fan of necessarily that type of iteration, but I do think that the voices need to be in the process at some point. So
yes, thanks for that, Marvin. I appreciate the reminder. So we are next week. We will put out an application form. We had an application form a little earlier. We want to make sure that we have it open for additional applicants as necessary. We'll set out some communication about that at the beginning of next week, and we'll share it with folks on this committee as well for dissemination, and we'll put it on our website.
will be. Coordinated. Well, thanks for joining us today, Alex. If there's nothing else, I'm gonna keep pushing. And up next is a NOFO update, or notification of funding opportunity update, and the possibility for us to vote on some money. So I'll pass it to Kelsey or Jen. I can't really see everybody. Kelsey?
I'll take that on.
Okay.
Yep, Jen is on some well-deserved time off this week. So I will share a little bit of a visual for you just so that the information is in front of your eyeballs. And want to just give you some updates on kind of where we are with the NOFO process, and the bits on some updated reallocation that we're hoping to get a vote on today. So I want to give you all an update on the rating and ranking that is going on right now, updates on the consolidated application work. Want to have time for you all to ask questions that you may have and provide whatever answers I may have. And then we'll do a review and recommendation for some additional money that we need to reallocate, and ask for a vote on the reallocation. So we are in the midst of doing the rating and ranking of all of the renewal and new applications for the COC funding. We currently are, all of those applications are in the hands of our raters. We have 12 raters this year, 8 raters who have lived experience, who are helping to review applications. We have 56 renewals in total. 3 of those are not rated, they will be ranked. That includes our HMIS, coordinated entry, and coordinated entry for DV. Just according to the HUD rules, those are projects, because they are so unique, they don't have really a comparison in our continuum to rate them against. So those are not rated, they are only ranked. We also have 7 bonus project applications currently that are being reviewed as well. We expect all of the rating to be kind of completed before September 13th. We will be meeting with all of the raters on September 11th to kind of discuss and finalize the ranking. That will then be sent out and published on September 13th. We will be holding a community meeting to review the rating and ranking process, as well as the final priority listing that will be submitted to HUD. There is a link to the community meeting that is now up on the website as of like 4 minutes ago. And there'll be also an email blast that's being sent out about the rating and ranking to invite community members, COC members, current funded providers to join that community meeting and get some updates and information. So please keep your eye out for the September 13th information bit. The kind of next body of work that we have is really the consolidated application. So we are working with a consultant this year for technical writing support. They have been working with us for the past month and joining the NOFO planning sessions. They're assisting in areas where we didn't really score full points in fiscal year 22. So we're looking at both just improvement of the technical writing, as well as working to identify, you know, what are some things that we have been doing and working on that we could include that maybe weren't included last year. This week, we will also be working on identifying application sections where we may want external partner support. In previous years, question sets have been sent out to partners who either provided training or, you know, have certain kind of niche work that they do, either related to work with school districts, work with domestic violence and training. So we will be going through the consolidated application and identifying those question sets to then be reaching out to our external partners to provide support, whether it's just a review of the response from the previous year and doing some updates, or looking at other groups to be getting input and a review of question sections and responses, just to make sure that we have a really robust and kind of well thought through response that includes members of the Continuum, as well as folks whose voices really would elevate responses that we have for the NOFO and the consolidated application portion. My hope is that those question sets will go out either by the end of this week or early next week, to give folks a week and a half, 2 weeks. The timelines are real tight, but to give people as much time as we possibly can, to provide some eyeballs on those question sets. So that is work that we will continue to be doing. We have our NOFO work group is meeting tomorrow morning, so we'll be walking through that and doing some kind of a working session during that time tomorrow morning. Before I move forward with the allocation bits, wanted to pause to see if there's any questions on NOFO updates and where we are. I see your hand.
Well,
Marvin.
I'm gonna raise my hand because it's not so much a question, but it is a question. When will the board need to meet to hold the vote on the submittal of the application, since that'll occur before our next regular meeting?
So with the updated charter, I believe the board just votes on the process of the NOFO. There's not a final vote on the application. That's really done through the recommendations in the work group.
Okay. He should read the charter better.
Any other questions or things folks would like to know about where we are with the NOFO?
Kelsey, just for shared awareness, who on the COC advisory committee has been part of the work group?
Yes, that we have Marvin, Tamra, Galina, we have Jaja, Patricia. I think that's everyone who has been a part of that. And Marvin and Tamara have been longstanding NOFO work group members and great contributors. And yeah, very, very grateful for the folks who've joined. And I think Dorsal as well. Pardon me if I have forgotten anyone, but I know we have it capped at 6 due to quorum.
Thank you, Kelsey, and thank you all for engaging more deeply in this part of the work. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Well,
any other questions before I move forward?
hit the gas.
Awesome. All right, so the next portion is the kind of update regarding some of the reallocation. So we have some additional dollars to reallocate, and the ask is for you all to vote on and approve the recommendation on how we reallocate those dollars. In front of you right now is the COC reallocation policy that talks about the different ways that dollars may be reallocated. The recommendation that we are putting forth for you to vote on is for us to take the additional dollars and take the funding in whole or part from that one project and apply it into a new project by a different provider or subrecipient, or take that funding from that one project and divide it into many new projects. So those are the two processes by which we are aiming to reallocate those dollars. Part of that, there are the two recommendations is when we have all of the new applications, how we'll kind of move the dollars that we have for the bonus and reallocation based on the number of applications, the amount of money that's being asked for, and ensuring that we have the money to cover those things that are rated high enough to be funded based on the raters and rankers who are currently doing their review.
So I do have a question, Christina.
I still do not feel like I've gotten an answer as to why King County gave back shelter plus care vouchers. I really think it's important that we know specifically why they have been given back to us for reallocation, whether it was staffing or God knows whatever the reason could be. But I don't feel like we've gotten a very good response back. I know Peter explained why DESC gave theirs back, so that made sense. But like King County, I don't feel like we understand very well as you know, youth care gave back something for from what I understood. So I want to know more why, and if we're not following that in detail, why. I think we need to develop something that we really do, because it concerns me that we're giving up shelter plus money specifically for shelter plus care vouchers, because they are such a specific, definite need in the community that really isn't met in other ways. And I don't, you know, want to hear just, oh, we can't do it, here's the money back. I want more, especially from King County. Be different. We're talking nonprofit, we're talking King County. I want to know why that money's coming back. Why really specifically? Who do we push for that, Kelsey, to get that information from? Because I really, in 2 months, I don't think we've gotten a really good answer to that.
Kelsey, I'm happy to, if we have time to jump in. And I apologize, Christina, if I think I spoke a little bit to this in our special meeting, perhaps if the question was posed there or in one of our prior meetings, for the TRA grant. So the tenant-based rental assistance portion of the Shelter Plus Care program. So with that award, it is rental assistance funding, and it leverages services from service providers. So the HUD award itself is the rental assistance dollars. We have for years now been returning a significant amount of unspent rental assistance while still serving or exceeding the number of households that are identified to be served by that project. So we are meeting the performance expectations of the program, but not able to fully expend the rental assistance dollars. And that's due to a few factors, including the fact that the average rent that we pay for participants is quite a bit below the average rent we are awarded. So there's this like structural gap of the actual cost to what is awarded for the number of folks we have committed to serve and are serving. So there's that gap that is a significant driver of that underspend. We really don't want to see those dollars go back to HUD. We want to see them used in the community, and so wanted to return them to the pot so that they could be used here to get more folks into units. That's really the main thrust. And we work with our subrecipient Plymouth, who administers the rental assistance funds and works with the service provider partners, who are providing the services that accompany the rental subsidy. And we're working with them around too, what are like staffing capacity issues that partners are experiencing, how is that affecting referrals and enrollments into the program. And that said, we have been serving the number of folks that we are that we commit to serving each year with the application. It's just really that difference in the actual rent versus what we're awarded.
Okay, thank you.
And Michael, good Lord, did I miss somebody?
No, it's me.
I have my question is part of a process question. this is the third go around and we still have in whole or part, where I thought we were really making better understanding that we didn't want to partially fund projects. It's historically not helpful. And it has always been my position that if we have programs we can fully fund, we fully fund them. And then we go find more money when possible to fund others. Whole or in part, or language like that creeps back in. And it's why I like to review our, our application and the way we choose to look at the issue of using federal dollars in our area, because we are going to be unique. We're always going to be new. There's very little reflection of our work anywhere else.
So let me clarify that really fast, Marvin. The funding in whole or part is from the project that is relinquishing dollars. That the funded project may relinquish all of their funding or a part of their funding. That's where that language is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, make a whole lot of sense now.
Okay, great.
I just had a clarity question for Martha. So are you saying that the Shelter Plus Care program is meeting the needs of this is extra money that you're sending back, that's being sent back? For clarity.
We are meeting the needs for the number of households, yep, that we have applied to serve. We're just doing it with fewer dollars. I mean, we don't need the full amount. We haven't been able to spend down. We haven't been able to, I will say we haven't been able to spend down the amount. That money is needed in our community. So that's why we want to free it up for other programs to use.
Thank you for that clarification.
And I want to applaud that because very few do.
Thank you.
Hi,
Kelsey?
this is,
No,
sorry.
Tamara?
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, given how like ridiculous the rents in King County are, I'm so surprised to hear that there's any extra money left over from any program, because I mean, how do you guys only fund like public housing or like affordable housing, or do you also like pay fair market rents? Like, just curious to know how that breaks down, because well, I mean, I am just shocked. That just kind of just blew my mind.
Yeah, I will say anecdotally, and so I don't have the numbers on me, but Shelter Plus Care is a longstanding program, and it is a permanent program. So once you're in, you're in the program, as long as that support is needed. And so we have number of households who've been in the program for a long time, and their rents have not increased at the rate that we've seen the market as a whole increase. So that's definitely a contributing factor.
The Reagan era thing.
Alan? Tamara, did that answer your question? Okay, your hand's still up. Alan?
Hey everybody, Alan Gutierrez, he, him, his. I just arrived at the King County Regional Homelessness Authority last Monday on August 28th. I'm super delighted to be joining this incredible team and in the presence of this fabulous Continuum of Care board. And thank you to all the attendees and partners and everybody involved in the NOFO. I do just want to comment on your really astute question. Is it Tamara or Tamara? I'm big on pronouncing names correctly.
It's Tamara.
Tamara. This is a really unique and sort of common thing that happens in other continuums of care. HUD funds rental assistance grants with an assumption that tenants have a zero rent contribution. And so that's not always the case. The way that the programs calculate the tenant portion kind of from the get-go can lead to savings, in addition to what Martha was referencing around Folks may have been housed and are in rent-controlled units, which we love and want. So it's really common that, you know, some projects are really stuck in a situation where they can't spend down all their funds. I'm coming to KCRHA from San Francisco's Continuum of Care, where I oversaw the portfolio and worked in partnership with the governing board. And this was a huge challenge in San Francisco. We were having to navigate, how do we spend this money? And so I think what's really exciting about this reallocation policy is that we get to have organizations really raise their hand and say like, hey, I'm serving everybody that we signed up to serve, and we have extra money. We want to be responsible and give this money back to the continuum of care to propose new projects and maximize the impact of our continuum of care in service of our 5-year plan. I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you, and thank you again.
Thank you, Alan. I have a question from the, is that in the chat? Q&A.
Mike Matthias,
Yeah, Mike Matthias.
the last convening
Thank you.
was a webinar without a way of communicating with other members. What is the maximum award amount for the rental assistant portion of Shelter Plus Care?
I have that in front of me in just 2 seconds. Maybe a little more than 2 seconds, but I can get that in front of, I have the GIW, the grant inventory worksheet up right now. So I am scrolling through it to get that number.
Can you also tell us how many individuals we have in King County that are Shelter Plus Care with that?
I don't have that number in front of me. Yeah, but I can give you the rental assistance amount. So the full rental assistance amount for the Shelter Plus Care tenant-based rental assistance is just over $10 million. And they're returning a little over 2 million. So about I think it's like $8.4 million will remain in rental assistance for this program. And 2 million are going into the pool for the bonus dollars to reallocate up to that $2 million additional. So we have just over $6 million in bonus funds that we are hoping to allocate to new programs this year.
Thank you. Ruby, did you have something to add, or were you just taking your hand down?
I did kind of have a clarification question. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Devices. Cool. My question was, is it, when it comes to grants, like, do programs, they have to spend like a certain amount, right, yearly in order to like guarantee getting a grant the next year? Or like kind of in a way, like if they spend all their money, it looks better than if they don't spend all their money? Does that have anything to do with this or no?
Yeah, your question makes sense. So one of the criteria we have for the rating process is about expenditure and how much of the funds were expended every year. We also ask about a 3-year spending history with every renewal application as well in order to get that information. So those are pieces that are evaluated and considered when it comes to rating and ranking.
Thank you. So there was a follow-up question from the room, and I didn't catch.
Judy answered it.
Oh, all righty. Kelsey?
Yeah. All right. So with these are the ways we are hoping to reallocate the money is take the funding and either put it into one new project or into many new projects. And then a little bit about the actual dollar amount. So the funds are being relinquished from one grant that is held by the Low Income Housing Institute. It's $105,000 that they are relinquishing from that grant. Our recommendation is to add those dollars to the available COC bonus dollars and that would increase the total amount of money that is available for new projects to $6,143,143. So that is our recommendation, is to add it to there and allocate it either to one new project or multiple new projects, depending on what the funding and outcomes are from the raters and rankers.
All righty, that's one recommendation. Anybody got a motion? Or are there any questions about the recommendation? Or use of?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the recommended reallocation of the 105,000 to the COC bonus dollars.
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Just wanted to confirm, do we need to also include in that motion was it 2 additional types of reallocation that we need to allow for? I wasn't sure with the color coding there. Is there an ask tied to this?
Those are the ways we're recommending how to reallocate the money. Yeah.
So are we voting on how we're going to be reallocating it right now, or just if we're going to be reallocating it?
The how and the how. Yes.
Okay, the how. Okay, so whether or not we're going to do in whole or in part. Perfect. Thank you.
But we have several new projects that would be coming from this 6.143, There are multiple projects, so that's recommendation 2, because we're reviewing the applications now, right? Okay.
Can I?
I'm sorry, who wants to speak? And I've got hand. Okay.
Can I get
Jaja.
clarification? Can we do a vote on the reallocation and then the vote on the multiple or whatever, the whole or part? I mean, if you kept thinking.
So really what we need from you, according to the policy, is for you to vote on how we reallocate those dollars, whether of these 4 or 5 ways of reallocating, we are recommending for these dollars, one of these 2 ways, depending on the outcome from the raters, how much money is total available, how much money is total asked for. So we're asking for a vote on the way by which we reallocate those dollars. Those dollars will be reallocated because they've been relinquished. And so we need to have your approval on the how we reallocate. Does that help clarify?
Yes.
Dorso, can I get can you fit that into a motion for me?
Yeah, I'm happy to adjust the motion, although I think technically, so if we move, and stop me if I'm being too technical, but if we move the 105K into the 6 million, technically we have to vote that we would divide that 105 up amongst multiple projects. Otherwise, we'd have to keep like a boundary around that 105 to ensure that it went to a singular project, if I understand correctly.
Ruby?
Good question. Yeah, what kind of projects, just theoretically, what it would be a project that we would be funding in full versus like, are these other new projects, are they new projects from organizations I've already worked with? Or are these like tier 2 projects that they've been holding off on in that rating and ranking like kind of idea? Like where are these new projects coming from and what could we?
Yep. So the reason there's the first bullet point that's highlighted of the funding in whole or part from one project to a new project by a different provider or subrecipient is if there is a scenario where we had somebody apply for the exact same amount and we could just kind of easily move things over. If we had only one project that applied for bonus dollars. So we want to be able to account for all potential scenarios when we are looking at reallocation. Because it's an open competition right now, I'm not going to speak on what is actively happening in order to maintain kind of fairness with the reading and ranking process. That's in the rater and ranker's hands. But that's part of why there are those two processes.
Okay. So we have to choose between which one today, though.
It's not a choice between the two. Those are the two processes we recommend voting. So there's those options.
Got you. Now I understand. Thank
Oh, sorry, did you call my name? I couldn't hear. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I feel like this feels a little convoluted, or the ask isn't very clear. That said, and I think this is maybe what Dorsal was saying, like if the recommendation is to add the 105 to the existing pot, I guess I want to know, is this list of 5 bullets, both colors, is this what we previously identified, all 5 of these as that pot for the 6 million?
No, we just identified the 2 for the previous amount. These are just all the bullets are the full policy. I wanted to make sure we had the full all of the ways of allocation in front of you to provide all of the information. It is the 2 bullets. That's how we are using the other reallocated money, the other $2 million that's being reallocated. That is how the means by which those are being reallocated is also those 2 bullet points. Because we don't want to assume what applications there are, what funding asks are, in terms of how things are reallocated without the full details.
So the existing 2 reallocated to million is limited to those 2 green bullet points?
Correct.
And if in this, I mean, since we know who's returning the 105, if we limited to those 2 green and Lehigh put forward a new project for 105, they would be ineligible if we follow this recommendation, because it would be a new project by the same subrecipient.
They would fall into the second bullet point. So there's either
the same subrecipient.
They would do funding in whole or part from one project into many new projects. So part of that 1.5, because it's a big pot of money, it makes more sense when it's the full $2 million, where $2 million can kind of be split between multiple projects a little bit better. The 105, that won't be spread as far. So the logic isn't there as much, but we want to be able to follow the process of, like, it could be that there are so many projects. One project needs a $50,000 extra and another needs $55,000 extra. So we want to be able to take that funding and put it in 2 different pots or 2 different projects. So the ability to kind of be nimble with how the new projects get funded, whether it's from just bonus dollars, whether it's from just reallocated dollars, whether it's from a combination of a little bit of the bonus money, a little bit of the reallocated money. So this allows us to kind of make those decisions on the back end of how we want to get the ability to fund as many new projects as possible.
Martha, your hand's still up. All righty. The chair has got himself confused because I no longer know what the motion is. Could someone please repeat the motion?
Chelsea, can you please repeat the motion, or Dorsal, you brought the motion, can you please repeat the motion?
I will attempt it myself, although I'm definitely feeling that it's late afternoon. So I believe the motion is to reallocate the 105,000 to add it to the, I need the slide to get that amount correct. 6 something.
6,143,143.
Yes. Yes, I think that's the motion.
Okay, great. I'm gonna go for your names, and I will approve, and Yep. Right away. Trisha Barnes, Sam.
I approve.
Thank you. Tamara Bauman.
I approve.
Kenyatta Perelman. Lise Castro.
I approve.
I heard of it.
Marvin Cottrell.
Yeah, I approve.
Zaja Floyd.
I approve.
Antoinette Lambert. Dorsa Plants.
Approve.
Ruby Romero.
I approve.
Martha Sasarosi.
Approve.
Christina Selwicki.
Can you add put something in there?
What? Thank you. Christina.
I approve.
Sherry Tillman. Cheater. Yep.
No. Yeah, Sherry is good.
I approve.
Thank you.
It's approved.
Selena White.
Yes.
All right, motion is approved with 12 votes. Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.
Kelsey?
Yeah, I think I'm on board again for our next topic.
So I want to know, can we squeeze the two together? We can talk about the convening and our timeline and our work group.
Yes, yes. So
All
the
right.
first thing that I want to kind of bring to you all, and this again, it will be let me make sure. This one is going to also be something to vote on. So in the information in the binder that you were all sent included a COC convening work group scope. This was a recommendation for a new work group for you all to have and be a part of the COC. And this is in order to kind of fulfill the HUD requirement that the COC convenes 2 times a year at minimum. The recommendation is that we have a new work group, which is the COC convening work group, that would begin meeting once up to a month of, oh, Lord, my goodness, y'all, it is the late afternoon, isn't it? To start meeting approximately early September through the end of November to plan, execute, and then follow up with a second convening for 2023. Work group members would include COC board members, KCRHA staff, and relevant COC members. There is a suggested list that Eli included below in one of their final scopes of work that they put together before moving to a new position. So the ask is for you all to discuss having a COC convening work group and then to vote on establishing that work group. The COC charter limits the number of people or number of members for a work group to 12. And the aim would be to develop and kind of create and lead the convening that would either be virtual or hybrid within the September to November timeframe. And I will push it over to you all for any discussion or questions that you all have.
Thank you, Kelsey. I will just add our context to the discussion that a work group is a good thing. It starts to address some of the questions that I've heard historically from board members. One is working closer with the implementation and governing board. One which was my big one, actually having a body of organizations, people interested in solving homelessness, be part of the work in which we bring forth as a continuum care board. we've had one convening. Well, no, we had two convenings, to be technically correct, in 3 years. I'd like to increase that to having one at least twice a year. You know, if we can't do more, if the community shows more, shows interest in the work that's going on. Did everyone, I guess my first question was, did everyone read Eli's email? There you go. Well, I hate to have to always say that I can either read it out loud, but that,
Summarize it.
okay. Basically, it's just giving us the understanding of some of the things we might want to talk about, which are the deliverables. Creating a timeline leading up to the convening, getting invitations out for the convening, building an agenda that we want to represent for the convening, and then following up, because it's a new activity and we haven't done all 3 parts yet. So this would be an opportunity for us as a new board to take ownership of of this process. So, Martha? Oh, I'm sorry. Tamara, then Martha.
Yeah, so I've already been thinking about this, and I already have a couple of different presenters that I would want to bring into the convening, simply for like shaping culture and how we move the work forward, moving away from like pathologizing and blaming and like individualized, reasons to blame people who are experiencing homelessness, to one that's more like community centered, that focuses on well-being. So I'd bring in the full frame initiative, and then the connection between housing and homelessness and mental health. So NAMI Seattle. Those two, I think, are gonna, in my perspective, I'm just speaking solely for me because I'm being very selfish right now. I think that those two entities would be fabulous in shaping that culture and changing the way we think about homelessness and mental illness. And, what does well-being mean? Well, it's individual, it's a subjective thing, but our homeless response system has not typically operated from that perspective. But like, we're fast to be like, well, what's wrong with them? Rather than like, what is missing from your life right now? How can we help you get that? So that you can achieve holistic well-being and care. So I'm really, really, really into culture shifting right now and changing narratives around homelessness and mental illness. So those were things. So I've already been thinking so much about this. So I guess I'm volunteering to be a participant.
All right. Martha?
Just checking, so seeking a vote here, so I'm happy to offer a motion in that direction if it's, I was to establish a COC convening work group as described in Eli's memo.
And I'd like to second it.
So I
Yeah,
want to,
sorry, we will, I'm not sure why it's not working.
but you're here today and we have your computer, so I want to figure out how it shows up so that this is not an ongoing issue. Yeah. So that, okay. So I believe the motion was to accept the formation of a work group for the convening as outlined in Eli's memo. Did I get that? Yes. And I believe Jaja seconded. Any discussion? Call for a vote.
Patricia Barnes, Sam, you have your vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
Approved.
Tamara Bauman,
I approve.
Kenyatta Carol Hillman.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Bees Castro,
I approve.
Jaja, you approved.
Yes.
Marvin Futrell,
Yes.
Krista. Is Andrew? Commercial plants.
Approve.
I approve.
Martha Sacerosi,
Approve.
Christina Sawicki. Approved. Sherry Tillman,
I approve.
Galena White.
Approved.
Motion is passed with a vote of 12 yeses. Approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So it is 3:53. Kelsey, do we have time to cover our project timeline, or do we want to follow up in an email maybe of some of what's going to take us into the new year?
Yep. I would definitely recommend holding off and having a more robust conversation about this. I think that's something that is really important for you all to have good conversation about. I think the pieces I will maybe leave you with for this month is just a little bit of transparency on KCRHA's end that this is a very busy season with the NOFO. So our ability to be as kind of on top of it as we have been, particularly with Eli in the COC coordinator role, is going to be a lot different, probably the next month and a half maybe, as staff work on the NOFO, and also hiring for the COC coordinator gets underway. I will be very honest that hiring, I am reviewing resumes and recommendations, but hiring and interviewing likely will not happen until after the NOFO, as time is not limitless. So want to just be really open about that. The kind of the key priorities, I think, for you all to just be thinking about and aware of, particularly to guide the conversation that I recommend you all hold in October, is the COC convening, fulfilling your role as an advisory committee to the governing committee and the implementation board, and ensuring that those processes move, that role moves forward. And then any other ongoing COC committee work. So are there any other work groups or committees that need to be discussed or scopes of work drafted? You know, we want to make sure that despite capacity issues that we have right now with the NOFO and staff transitioning, that the goals and the key priorities that you all have as a board continue to move forward. So wanting to kind of just set that stage with you all. We have, you know, a number of things transitioning. One of which is that we have our new Deputy Chief of Program Officer, Alan. So would also love to just kind of defer the rest of the time that I'm available right now to Alan to kind of again introduce themselves, and if you all just kind of have questions. So Alan, pardon me if I put you on the spot, but also wanted to make sure that that is a pointed piece of today.
Thank you so much, Kelsey, and you did not put me on the spot at all. Hi again, everyone. Alan Gutierrez, he, him, his, one of two Deputy Chief Program Officers at the KCRHA. I'm super excited to be here with you all. And as I mentioned earlier, I was most recently working for 5.5 years in San Francisco's Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing, and oversaw the continuum of care This meeting has already been like a really major highlight of my first 7 days. I think it's something to be really proud of that you all, as the COC governing board, approved 3 action items on the agenda today. That's huge. The work that you're doing is really moving our continuum of care forward in terms of its governance. So I really want to just applaud you all. I don't want to like rattle off all the things that I've done, but I have worked very deeply, I'll just say at a high level, to increase San Francisco's continuum of care compliance with all of HUD's all the rules. In my past life, I was known just as a rule breaker. And what I've really learned about HUD's rules is that there's a lot more gray areas than folks may assume with federal funds. So I really look forward to opportunities to talk about some of those flexibilities and how we could be creative. Also really want to work on emphasizing spending down our available resources. One thing I'll highlight, in San Francisco, I actually worked with Derek Wentorf and CSH, who's on the call, to like use $2 million in unspent, like just historically unspent funds to fund a brand new permanent supportive housing site with 67 units. And so we were able to really just maximize the impact of our COC. And there's so much to say, but I just want to thank you all so much for being here and your partnership. And I look forward to all the work ahead.
Martha?
Thank you, and thanks for the extended introduction. I was just hoping to know if we will have any votes in the October meeting, just for us to have that awareness, and if there's materials we'll expect in advance. Anything we're voting on next month?
And I answered that for myself when I said wrote. Write down all recommendations and votes and send with agendas so that folks have time to ponder. I also wanted to do, before I pass it over to Jaja to take us out, we have a planning work group. It has now been up and running for a while. It's generally attended by the chairs almost regularly. It's Mondays at 3 p.m. And like our NOFO working group, the cap is 6, but we can always work people in and out. But we want to always be building agendas that encompass the work that we all hear around here and not simply rely on 1 or 2. So, Dorsal?
I just wanted to check in on that ability to work people in and out, because I had spoken with KCRHA staff about joining that meeting, was told that it was full, and so I wasn't welcome.
Interesting. I'll double check that, because the last one I was at, I was lonely. So I don't know why this, I will follow up with staff and make sure that we're giving accurate information. It's been a period of change, so we'll correct that.
Yeah.
Anyone, Jaja?
So if there's no more questions, I'd like to thank you all for being here and enjoying us. And we always enjoy seeing each and every one of you, and all those in the public who like to come and see us. Please come back next month. We'll be here at the same place, the same time, and we hope to see you all here then. Thank you so very much. Have a blessed weekend, or weekend. My weekend hasn't ended, I guess.
I'd have seen that you stopped working somewhere.
Yeah, wow. Have a blessed day, evening.
All
I
right.
second that motion.
We got a second.
Thank you.
And the villager has gotten up and is leaving. Bye, guys. Thank
Meeting
you.
adjourned.
Thanks. Good to meet you, Alan.
Oh, and thank you, Alan, for being here with us.
Yeah, we need to get him in the
Love
office.
you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be there. I'm moving up from Berkeley to Seattle in 10 days. So